So in the previous class, we talked about oligopoly, but today it's still market structure. Today we're going to talk about monopoly. Why is it a monopoly? It's a monopoly because a single firm produces goods or service in that market, which simply means that the single firm is the same as the industry. So the industry, industry is made up of different combinations of firms selling the same product. That makes it an industry. But when it comes to a monopoly, the monopolist is the industry itself, because it's the only firm producing goods or service in that industry, and that is what a monopoly is. So I'm going to read further. A monopoly is a market structure where a single firm is the sole provider, which is just one firm producing or supplying goods in that market. Facing no competition, there are no other rivals in that market, and having no close substitute, which simply means consumers do not have alternative when it comes to the products made available in that market. So what are the characteristics of a monopoly? The first one is single seller. A single seller, as the name could be. So it's a single seller because it's the only one producing a good or providing a service in that market. 2. High barriers to entry. When we talk about high barriers to entry, we're simply talking about hindrance that makes it difficult, or hindrance that bring about firms or new firms or potential firms coming into that market. So one of the hindrances are maybe government regulations. So before we go into that, it is difficult for other firms to enter such market. That's why it's a monopoly. So government regulations could be the reason, and these are what we call legal monopoly. It could be control of key resources. Maybe the firm has the ability to control or has natural resources available to it, and that might bring about a natural monopoly. And the third one, patents, which could be exclusive rights to production. And the last one is high initial cost. Another reason why there could be high barriers to entry is that the startup cost might be so high that it is difficult for firms, to come up with such finance. These are the reasons. This could be the reason why there is high barrier to entry, which is the second one. The third one, price maker. The monopolist sets the price because it has the market power to set price in that market. And how does it do that? The first thing is reduce the quantity supplied in the market, then raises the price. So that's why a monopolist is what? A price maker. So I'm going to read further. The monopolist has the power to set the price, often resulting into higher prices and lower quantities. As soon as the quantity supplied in the market reduces, prices are expected to rise, and that is what a monopolist will do. Lack of close substitutes. In the market structure that is called monopoly, consumers have no alternative to the product or service being offered. So the only product available is what consumers have to buy, because there are no alternatives to that product that is being offered. Profit maximizer. A monopolist would always want to maximize profit. As a result, would produce at an output level where the marginal cost equals to the marginal revenue. So what are the types of monopolies we have? We have the natural monopoly, we have the legal monopoly, we have pure monopoly, and geographic monopoly. So I'm going to start with natural monopoly. Why is it called a natural monopoly? It's called a natural monopoly because a single firm can produce for the entire market at a lower cost than multiple competing firms due to economies of scale. So it's a natural monopoly because it is more efficient for that firm to produce than allowing multiple firms to produce in such markets due to the fact that there's economies of scale. That is a natural monopoly. We're going to go deep into natural monopoly after the class anyway. The second one is the legal monopoly. We call it a legal monopoly because government allows it to be a monopolist. So I'm going to read further. The government grants a firm exclusive rights like patent, copyright license to produce or to operate in that market. That is a legal monopolist. Then we have the pure monopoly. Why is it a pure monopoly? It's a pure monopoly. It is theoretical. It is not. There's no reality when it comes to. There's no real life example of a pure monopoly. That's the point. That's why I wrote a theoretical. It's a theoretical market where a firm has 100% market control, unique product, and absolute barriers to entry. There's no product that is unique. But we try to create a unique selling point, but there's no one product in the world that is unique. They have similarities. That's why it's theoretical. But a pure monopoly is a theoretical market where a firm has 100% market control, which is not possible. That's why it's theoretical. Unique product and absolute barriers to entry. There's not going to be absolute barriers to entry because there's always going to be a reason to enter the market. And the last one is geographic monopoly. Why do we call it geographic monopoly? We call it a geographic monopoly because this monopoly is set up in an isolated area and it's the only one producing good or service in that area. So I'm going to read further. Geographic monopoly. A firm is the sole provider of a good or service in a specific isolated location. So it's a monopoly, it's geographic monopoly because a firm or a single firm produces a good or service in an isolated location. That makes it geographic monopoly. So in the next class we're going to talk about a natural monopoly, going deep down about a natural